In many parts of the world, this is the obvious first pet snake or best pet snake. But in a land full of ball pythons and corn snakes, I'm going to teach you exactly why carpet pythons are king of the jungle. Ball pythons are great. Don't get me wrong, I love them. For most people, that is probably your best pet snake. Because ball pythons are calm and they're placid and they're big enough to be impressive, but they're not going to hurt you, and chances are they're not going to try anyway. They're not super defensive, they're not crazy food motivated, and they come in a million different colors. But ball pythons also are kind of lazy and ball up most of the time and like to hide. They're shy, they're boring, and they've got feeding issues more often than not. So for that reason, I think that there's probably a better pet snake for most people, and that is the carpet python. If you want a simple explanation, carpet pythons are the choose-your-own-adventure snake that is one species. What I mean by that is there's a bunch of different subspecies and locales, and each one is a little bit different but so similar to each other, you don't need a whole new care guide or new set of parameters in order to keep them. There's gonna be micro adjustments. Not to mention, with each different subspecies or locale, the color is gonna be completely different, the pattern is gonna be completely different, and the size might be a little bit different too. No matter which carpet python you choose from, they're all coming from the same part of the world. And this is parts of Indonesia, Australia, Bismarck, that area. Even Solomon Islands has some subspecies of carpet python. And there's some really common ones. Morelia spilota is the species, and the subspecies jungle, Irian or Papuan, coastals, centralians, Darwins, and diamond pythons. Now, diamond pythons, people talk about like they're not, but they are. It's still a Morelia spilota. It's still the exact same species. They just look a heck of a lot cooler than most. Plus, if you want a smaller snake, then get yourself an IJ, Irian, otherwise known as a Papuan. Papuans are probably the best for most people because, well, they are smaller. Now, Papua, if you don't know, used to be called Irian. That's this island here in the Southeast Asia area of the world. We're talking about Indonesia, kind of close to Australia, and that's where you're gonna find this subspecies or locale of carpet python. Irian are gonna be 4 or 5 feet when they grow up, so they're gonna be a really manageable snake. Imagine a snake similar size, but maybe a little bit thinner, to a ball python. That's what you're getting with an IJ. And on the other end of the spectrum, we've got coastal carpet pythons, which are from the coastal area of Australia, think Queensland. This species is going to be kind of similar looking, I guess, in terms of its scalation and pattern and color, but it's going to be a lot bigger, up to 9 feet. And keep in mind, there are outliers. There have been carpet pythons that have been measured 12 feet. I mean, this is like a shack type thing, right? Where most people aren't 7 feet, but some people are. Same sort of thing. And when I tell you that Irian are smaller than coastals or jungles or whatever, this is a rule, but there's exceptions to rules. For example, most people in the Netherlands are going to be taller than most people in Madagascar, but you might get some Madagascar man who's taller than somebody who comes from the Netherlands or Sudan or wherever. There are exceptions, of course. And when we talk about patterns, let's look at these diamond pythons. I don't have a diamond python. I would love one. They're definitely, well, probably the most expensive of the carpet pythons because they just look so unique, so different, and just freaking amazing animals. The second best looking, in my opinion, are the jungle carpet pythons. Now keep in mind, when you see carpet pythons, it's oftentimes a cross. So for example, I just showed you B-roll of this specific animal when I told you about jungles, but this isn't a jungle carpet python. This is a cross, a jungle Irian cross. Now I bought this animal and I was told that it was an Irian coastal, but it's definitely not a coastal in any way, shape, or form. It's not big enough. It's an Irian jungle carpet python. So it has that beautiful yellow and black, which in my opinion is the most beautiful color combination in all of nature. I love yellow and black. I'm also a Boston Bruins fan, so that helps. But don't worry, you don't have to be a Bruins fan or a Steelers fan in order to appreciate this yellow and black look. Not only that, but the pattern is very, very clean. The other great thing about carpet pythons, no matter what subspecies or morph, their scalation always looks clean. And so does my face, thanks to today's sponsor, Geology. And what I love is they use only what they need to. A lot of other companies have a lot of stuff in their bottles that you wouldn't want to put on your face. Geology uses dermatologists to tell them, hey, you only need these ingredients and that's what's gonna work the best. I look at myself a lot for a living editing these videos, and I noticed a couple years ago I was getting these dark circles under my eyes and I was looking old, like I was aging in dog years. So I teamed up with Geology, and ever since then, it seemed like time has stood still. When I look at myself today versus 2 years ago, I notice my skin still looks healthy. There's not this noticeable decline like I saw before. And I've used other products, don't get me wrong, but they're not as easy. They always are complicated, and I don't know what to use when or on which day. With Geology, literally on the bottle, it says step 1, 2, 3, or 4. So I always know what to use and when to use it. And don't worry, it's not one size fits all. They have a quiz on their website. You tell them what your goals are, what's going on with your skin, and they'll send you the products to match your desires and your goals. Plus, this stuff is hard to fake. 10,000 5-star reviews, 38 times award winning. Geology's legit. If you want to try it out, use my link and code below to get 70% off your custom skincare set. That's a full month trial for 12 bucks. Plus, you can grab any edition of your choice absolutely free. Trust me, your skin is gonna thank you. And let's talk about their behavior. They are arboreal snakes. I'm handcuffed, by the way. They double as handcuffs, if you're into that sort of thing. Arboreal means that they live their life in the tree, so semi-arboreal, technically. You're not gonna find these guys on the ground most often. When you go to Australia or you see pictures from Australia of somebody with one of these on their property, it's always like in a tree eating a bird or hanging down from their eaves or something like that. I realized recently that in America, you guys don't know what eaves are. It's this part on your house. That's why it's called an eaves trough instead of a gutter everywhere else in the world. What I love about arboreal snakes or semi-arboreal snakes is they feel different. They behave different and they look different the way that they move about. This animal is slender. I mean, my hand almost fits all the way around it, even though it's a 6.5 foot animal, something like that. Whereas if it was a Burmese python that was 6.5 feet, like look at this one right here. Look at this animal in comparison. There's no way that I could put my hand around this animal. And they hold on to you very different. A snake like, I don't know, a hognose snake, this is a weird comparison, but a hognose snake, for example, isn't gonna hold on to you. You have to hold on to it. Otherwise it's gonna drop to the floor. They feel very derpy almost, where these animals don't feel derpy at all. They feel like they're in control, like they know what's going on. And that's something that I love. That's why I love arboreal snakes. That's why I've fallen in love with emeralds and chondros and spotted pythons, which is another fantastic example of a python species that's semi-arboreal from Australia. Also, this makes them a lot of fun. Now, when you're filming a video, it might be a little bit easier to have something that moves around a little bit less, but if you're just on the couch hanging out with your animal and you want to feel it move and watch the way that it kind of has this motion getting from place to place or moving through space, a ball python probably isn't the most fun thing in the world because they're not going to move around in the same way, where this animal just hasn't stopped moving since we sat down. Another great example of why this snake is so freaking amazing is the feeding response. Now, this can be a double-edged sword. Now, I'm not talking about reticulated python feeding response where it's so aggressive in terms of being excited for food anyway, not aggressive and a snake trying to hurt you or anything, that it's not fun. In my opinion, I don't really like reticulated pythons. I mean, in terms of me keeping them, they're not my favorite because the feeding response to me is just, it's more of a burden than a plus. Think about it like horsepower in a car. If you have too little horsepower, it's a boring car. If you have tons of horsepower, it's really fun. But if you got so much horsepower that the wheels have no traction, then you just can't get anywhere and it's kind of a waste. And in my opinion, that's what it's like with, really, really heavy feeding response animals where you can't even really handle them without feeling a little on edge. With carpet pythons, you kind of tote that line. You're really straddling the line perfectly where it has a great feeding response and you don't have to worry about a snake that's not going to eat its meals when you try to feed it. This is something that I hate with ball pythons. I love ball pythons, don't get me wrong, but when they don't eat a rat for, this week, but they do next week, and then they don't for 5 weeks, and then they go off for 3 months, that to me is annoying. Where you don't have to worry about that with carpet pythons. Carpet pythons are second only to boa constrictors and reticulated pythons in terms of always wanting to eat. Plus, it's easy diet. If you want to feed them birds, because they do eat a lot of birds in the wild, you can feed them, chickens and quails, but I feed mine mostly rodents, and you don't have to feed them that often as adults. This is gonna, change based on their size and their locale, but for me, every couple of weeks, I'll feed a rat to these animals, so it costs what? $3 every other week. We're talking about 70 or 75 bucks a year to feed one of these snakes. And then most importantly, probably when you think of an animal, is the care requirement. Are you able to care for them? And the answer is yes. Obviously, it's gonna be a little different taking care of something that's from Australia compared to Papua, but the care is all pretty much very similar. We're talking about you're gonna have cool ends in the low 70s, your hot end is gonna be in the high or mid 80s, and then your basking spot's gonna be somewhere around 91, 92 degrees. I mean, keep in mind, it could be a little bit up or down, but in the wild, I don't know if you know this, there's no thermostat, and it's not perfect anyway. If anyone in a care guide ever tells you it has to be perfect, otherwise your snake is gonna spontaneously combust, stop watching the care guide. You're giving direction and trying your best. Doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but they're forgiving if you're not perfect. These snakes, of course, when I say forgiving, I don't mean neglect the animal. I'm just saying if you make a mistake or, the misting system breaks and they don't have perfect humidity for a few days, or the temperature drops because the ball breaks out and you don't really realize it, and they get into, 65 degrees Fahrenheit for a night, or their daytime high only gets to 75 for a week, you're gonna be fine. They're not gonna, be a chameleon and be super drama and die from it. They're forgiving and they're hardy, which ball pythons are too. I know this is supposed to be kind of a comparison, but really, I just wanted to show you carpet pythons. I've never really done a video about them, but I love them. I didn't really even want this species. It just came to be that I was in the reptile shop one day and my buddy said, "Hey, do you want these snakes? You can have them if you want. I know you like carpet pythons, but don't have any yourself." And I'm so glad that I picked them up. Not only do I love them, but this is probably my wife's favorite snake to take out and handle. And we actually, under supervision, of course, give the snake to children to handle too. When we've got our nieces and nephews and their kids and things like that, I mean, we give them this snake to handle because he's chill, he's calm, he moves around a little bit, more interesting than a ball python. They're big enough to be impressive, but they're not so big that you have to worry about a catastrophic event. Would you ever get a carpet python? And if so, which locale would you get? Let me know in the comments section below. I'd love to know. As always, thank you so much for hitting like and subscribe. It really helps the channel more than you could ever even know. And the Patreon, you guys get videos early, discounts on merch, all that and more for as little as $1 a month. That's it. I do videos Mondays and Thursdays, so I'll see you in the next one.